Introduction to Real Estate Value. Value is at the center of every real estate decision. Whether a client is buying, selling, investing, or refinancing, the entire transaction hinges on one question: what is the property worth? In earlier chapters, you learned how price is negotiated and how market conditions shape buyer and seller behavior. This chapter takes you deeper into how value is created, measured, and supported. You will explore the difference between value and price, the forces that influence value, the role of the appraiser, and the three major approaches used to develop an appraisal: the sales comparison approach, the cost approach, and the income approach. When you understand how value is determined, you can help clients set realistic expectations, read appraisal reports more confidently, and navigate both residential and commercial valuation scenarios with greater clarity. The nature of value and price. Market value is the most probable price a property will bring in an open and competitive market where both buyer and seller act knowledgeably and without pressure. Price is simply what the parties agree to pay in one specific transaction. A property may have a market value of $500,000, but sell for $515,000 in a bidding war, or for $480,000 if the seller needs a fast closing. Value exists before the sale. Price expresses that value at a given moment. Example: a home appraises at $450,000, yet a relocation buyer willing to pay above market to move quickly offers $470,000. The value to that buyer is higher due to urgency and specific needs, creating a price that exceeds market value. Foundations of value. Value is supported by four classic economic principles: demand, utility, scarcity, and transferability. A property must be desired, useful, limited in availability, and able to be transferred without clouds on title. Additional principles help explain market behavior, including conformity, substitution, progression, regression, change, and highest and best use. Example: a home surrounded by well-maintained properties often benefits from progression, meaning the surrounding homes elevate its appeal and value. The opposite, regression, can occur when a large custom home is located among smaller, lower-value homes. The principle of substitution. Substitution is the foundation of nearly every appraisal method. A buyer will not pay more for a property than the cost of acquiring an equally desirable substitute. This is why comparable sales are crucial in residential appraisals and why cost and income approaches rely on the idea that buyers or investors compare alternatives. Example: if two homes in the same subdivision offer similar condition and square footage, buyers will choose the one priced competitively. Overpricing fails because substitutes exist. Highest and best use. Highest and best use is the legally permissible, physically possible, financially feasible, and maximally productive use of a property. It answers the question: what use will generate the greatest value? Example: a vacant lot in an office corridor may be worth more as a commercial development site than as residential land, even if it currently sits empty. The appraisal process, purpose, and role of the appraiser. Appraisers develop unbiased opinions of value for lenders, buyers, sellers, courts, and government agencies. While an agent provides a CMA, an appraiser follows a standardized process governed by USPAP to ensure impartiality and accuracy. The appraisal is not the actual price of the property. It is an estimate of market value based on evidence and systematic analysis. Steps in the appraisal process. The appraiser identifies the problem, determines the type of value to be developed, gathers market data, analyzes highest and best use, applies the three approaches, reconciles the results, and produces a final value estimate. This structured approach ensures that every factor influencing value is considered objectively. Sales comparison approach. Definition and purpose. The sales comparison approach analyzes recently sold properties that are similar in size, age, condition, and location. Because buyers naturally compare homes, this approach mirrors real market behavior and is most commonly used in residential appraisal. Selecting and adjusting comparables. Appraisers select the most similar sales and adjust for differences in features such as square footage, condition, upgrades, garage size, lot size, and pools. Adjustments are made to the comparable, never to the subject property, to reflect how the market reacts to each feature. Example: if a comparable property has a remodeled kitchen and the subject does not, the appraiser deducts value from the comparable because it is superior in that feature. Bracketing. Appraisers often use bracketing, meaning at least one comparable should be slightly superior and one slightly inferior. This anchors the subject's value within a realistic range. Cost approach, definition, and when used. The cost approach estimates value by determining how much it would cost to build the property today, subtracting depreciation, and adding land value. It is most useful for new construction, special purpose buildings, and situations where comparable sales are limited. Replacement cost versus reproduction. Cost. Replacement cost reflects the cost to build a similar property using modern materials, while reproduction cost reflects building an exact replica. Modern appraisals typically use replacement cost. Depreciation. Types. Appraisers must account for physical deterioration, functional obsolescence, and external obsolescence. Example: a home backing a busy freeway may suffer external obsolescence because noise lowers desirability. Income approach. Definition and application. The income approach is used mainly for income-producing properties, such as rentals, offices, apartments, and commercial centers. Value is based on the property's ability to generate income. Investors focus on net operating income, capitalization rates, and cash flow. Net operating income, NOI. NOI is calculated by subtracting operating expenses, but not debt service, from gross income. Example: an apartment complex generating $200,000 in NOI and using a 6% capitalization rate would have an estimated value of roughly $3.3 million. Capitalization rate, cap rate, reflects the relationship between NOI and value. Lower cap rates indicate lower perceived risk and higher values. Higher cap rates reflect higher risk and lower values. USPAP and appraisal regulation, Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. USPAP establishes ethical and performance standards that appraisers must follow. The goal is impartiality, independence, transparency, and credible results. Lenders rely on USPAP-compliant appraisals to ensure safe lending decisions. Ethical requirements. Appraisers must avoid conflicts of interest, cannot be influenced by the parties involved, and must produce work that is objective and well supported. Agents must remember that it is unethical and illegal to pressure an appraiser to hit a certain value. Review summary. In this chapter, you learned how value differs from price and why market value represents the most probable price under normal conditions. You explored how value is rooted in desire, utility, scarcity, and transferability, and how economic principles such as substitution, conformity, regression, and highest and best use shape the way buyers look at properties. You followed the appraisal process and saw how appraisers apply systematic methods to estimate value. You learned how the sales comparison approach mirrors buyer behavior, how the cost approach relies on construction cost and depreciation, and how the income approach evaluates income-producing property through NOI and capitalization rates. You also reviewed USPAP and the ethical standards governing valuation. Together, these concepts give you the foundation to understand how value is developed, interpreted, and communicated in modern real estate practice. Discussion: how does the principle of substitution protect buyers from overpaying? Substitution ensures that a buyer compares alternatives. If two comparable homes exist, the buyer chooses the one offering the best value. This natural comparison keeps prices aligned with the broader market and prevents extreme overpricing. Why is highest and best use critical when determining land value? Because land can have multiple legally permissible uses. The one that generates the greatest return determines market value. A parcel zoned for commercial use may be worth far more than the same parcel kept as vacant residential land. How does external obsolescence affect value, even when a property is well maintained? External conditions such as noise, traffic, nearby industrial uses, or declining neighborhood conditions can lower value regardless of the property's physical quality. These influences come from outside the property lines and cannot be cured by the owner. Why do income-producing properties often rely more on the income approach than the sales comparison approach? Investors buy such properties for income, not lifestyle, because rent, expenses, vacancy, and cap rates determine profitability. The income approach best reflects investor expectations and market performance. Closing remarks. Understanding value allows you to bridge the gap between what buyers hope to pay and what sellers hope to receive. When you grasp how appraisers think, how markets behave, and how economic principles shape value, you become far more effective in guiding clients through pricing, negotiations, and investment decisions. This chapter gives you the tools to read the market intelligently, understand appraisal reports clearly, and advise your clients with confidence across residential, commercial, and investment properties.